Welcome to So Very Easy. My name is Laura, and today I have a free quilt pattern to share with you from Maywood Studios. 2 simple blocks put on the diagonal, nice, fresh, and clean looking fabric. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's get started. There are 2 main blocks in this quilt pattern. It has a very fresh and clean look, which goes great with the fabric. The fabric line is called Greenery. It's a great selection of grays, blacks, and greens. There's a little bit of print with this little floral that looks a little bit like Lily of the Valley. Some paisleys, some beautiful ornate little flower prints, and this beautiful check on the diagonal. I'll put a link in the description so you can download the pattern. On one page they have all the pictures of the fabrics and all the cutting directions. I like to cut all of my fabrics first and then have them ready to go. And I like to start with my marked pins. These are flat flower head pins and they have the letters of the alphabet on them. And by placing my markers in the paper, I'm going to be able to transfer those pins once I have the fabric cut. I see that I have 2 of the same letter. I have D and E's in this screen and D and E's in this green. So I'll put these 2 together as I'm cutting them. The green is this border in these 12 blocks. And because we have 6 different greens, we're going to get 2 blocks that are going to look the same. Once all my pieces have been cut and my pins have been transferred, I now can put this together. This is a great system of keeping organized. I know I have all the fabric I need and I'm ready just to go to the machine and sew. I even have my binding and backing and leftover fabric all together. And that way I don't steal this binding for another project. And starting with 1, we're going to put all the pieces that we need together. A block is shared between both those blocks. So we have the A in the center and then B on each side. So you can divide your B pile in half. On the sides, we need C, and this is going to make a center square. You can sew them together in this way or just put them all together first. I like to lay them all out, and that way I have a general idea on what it's going to look like. We need D, so I can divide my pile. E, when all of this is together, it's still going to keep it square. F is going to go on after that, and G. These are all the pieces that we're going to need for that first block, and we're going to need 12 blocks. I can now take this board right to my sewing machine and start sewing the pieces together. A and B need to go together first. I have 12 of my ABs sewn together, so I'm going to take the rest of that stack and put it aside. The next thing will be sewing that B onto the other side of that black. Once the rest of the B's are sewn on, I'm finished with the B's. Those seams need to be pressed coming in to the black. And the next is putting those sides on. So I can take this to the machine and put both sides on at the same time. C pieces are now done and the seams need to be pressed going out. The next is a row of green. You can mix them up in any direction you want, or you can have all of the same pieces in each square. By having all of the pieces the same, it gives it a cleaner, less scrappy look. If you want them all the same, it'll be easier if you take this now and divide your pile up and keep them in order. It's sort of like a deck of cards. I've made sure that the order that D is in is the order that E is in. And having them in order here is going to save you time from trying to match them up after. From here we can take that D and sew it onto that center square, keeping them all in order. All of the D's are done. Now we can put on the E's. Take the D's and press them coming out. E is done and I'm pressing the seams going out. And continue pressing those seams out and put those last 2 borders on. With that last round on, the first 12 blocks are now done. For the next block, we're going to make 4 corners and then put them together. The blocks are going to go together sort of like a log cabin. So we're going to start with the 2 pieces and then sew the next side on and the 2 corners. Sewing the rest of the A together to the H. With A and H done, we're going to be able to add on the I. I'm going to press that gray towards the black and the gray towards the larger black. To continue the corner, add on J, press down, add on the K, and press towards K. We now have 24 of the corners done. To put the 4 corners together, we will need to add some sashing in between the blocks. The smaller squares are going to point out, with the sashing going in between. Take 6 of the L's and put them in between the M. And the seams are going to press out. From there, we're going to add 6 of the sashings to each of the corners. The blocks have been put together with that center row of sashing, so I'm going to be able to take 6 for the bottom and 6 for the top. With the center sashing done, we're going to be able to stitch these together. The green has been pressed out, so the center blocks have been pressed in. And those seams will nestle together. Both blocks are now done. We have 6 and 12. The quilt is put together in rows on a diagonal. So what we need to do is build half that quilt at a time. If we divide that quilt in half, both sides are identical. So we can make both corners at the same time and then sew them together. We need to start with this corner. You can use the same squares or mix them up. The triangle that was cut out of N is going to go on the end. The O's are going to go on the sides. We'll sew the side ones on first. This straight edge of that triangle is going to match along the bottom of that square. Match up the 2 corners and stitch down a 1/4 inch. You're going to have a big dog ear come off of the end. When that one is stitched on, you will do the same to the other block. And do that to 2 blocks. Once the 2 corners are on, we can put that top piece on. We need to trim off these little dog ears. And it really is as simple as taking a ruler and following this straight edge of the block and trimming off those 2 little corners. Take that corner point and fold it into the block. And you can see where you have lots of extra here. This point should point in the middle of the block, and it doesn't have to be exact because we're going to be able to trim it down. And stitch that corner on with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You can have the seams pressed in any direction that you want, but it just needs to be consistent. I'm going to have the seams being pressed into the bullseye block, but if you choose to, you can press them out, but just maintain that pressing throughout the quilt. So no matter where you sew those blocks together, the seam is going to go in the same direction. That's going to keep it so that it nestles together. So this first corner is now done. We need to do the second row. And joined up to this bullseye block, we're going to need that secondary block. And it's going to fit right in here. On each side, another bullseye. To continue this triangular shape, we need to put the same triangles that we have on this area, which is the O piece. The triangle is going to fit right on the edge. And then when you get to the other side, the large triangle is going to be put on that side. So the second row together, we have the 2 bullseyes, the center one, and 2 triangles. And I'm making both sides at the same time. So I will need 2 of row 2. With row number 2 sewn together, we will have dog ears right at the end of the triangles, just like we did this top square. Just take a ruler and trim them off and sew the 2 rows together. And those seams are going to nestle up because you have the pressing going in opposite directions. We have one last row to do. We're going to continue that theme filling in with those extra blocks. Once the blocks are lined up, we need to put the triangles on the corner. And they're a little bit different than the last row. So this is what we've been working on. This is the first row, the second row, and the third row. And both these ends are the same. When we divide that in half, it'll be easier to see it this way. You have that large triangle following along the one side. And that triangle is the same as this top triangle, which is block number N. Put on the straight, each 4 of those will make the corners. Take your ruler and just follow that edge and cut off both of those really big dog ears. With the dog ears trim, you're going to be able to sew those rows together. We now have those 3 rows sewn together, and it's double. We're going to be able to just sew that quilt together right down the center by putting those 2 triangle shapes together. And when it's straightened, you're going to have all the rows sewn on the angle, but it's going to be in a beautiful rectangular shape. And those pieces are going to fit right together. Before we put on the next border, we're going to have to trim this down so that the edges are nice and straight. We're going to need a 1/4 inch peeking out from those corners. To square up the corners, a square ruler does work great. This is the point where we need the 1/4 inch from here and here. It's not important the size of the ruler, it's important that 1/4 inch. I have my 1/4 inch poking out from those corners, and with that 45-degree line down the center, I can see that that has a nice straight line. And I'm not worried about trying to do all the quilt at once. I just want to do a section at a time. With this corner done, I'm going to be able to walk a ruler all the way down the edge. And a 24-inch ruler is going to be great to trim this. It doesn't matter how wide, we just want that length. I'm going to put that edge of the ruler right along the previous cut that I did. So I still have that 1/4 inch. I'm going to make sure this is nice and flat and have a 1/4 inch on that other point. So I'm only focusing on this one triangle at a time. And I'm going to trim just a little bit past this point. So I'm not worried about trimming this all off. It'll go as I go along. Bring the quilt down to the next large triangle, making sure that this is nice and flat. Put the ruler along that straight edge, finding a 1/4 inch mark, and as long as this area is flat, you don't have to worry about what is coming up or what has passed. This is just the area you need to focus on. And trim, stopping just a little bit past that point. I'm going to continue pulling this quilt down, trimming each one of these triangles. And then when I get to the corner, I'm going to pull out that square, do the corner, and then continue down the other side. I'm going to do this all the way around, trimming this off, maintaining that 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once it's all trimmed up, we need to add one more border. And the border fabric was cut at 2.5 inches. We will need to sew these strips together in order to have enough length to go around the quilt. You need to choose 2 sides to work on first and then the second. And when those borders are on, press them going out. Greenery is now done. They're very simple, big blocks, but having them go on a diagonal really gives them a different dimension. And that black and gray and green really give it a fresh, modern feel. The fabric and the pattern is from Maywood Studios, and I'll put a link in the description so you can go in and print it out and follow along. Thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back. Let's see what we're sewing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.